Welcome to Moe's Paisley Penny Arcade. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello, hello, and welcome to the Paisley Penny Arcade. I'm Mo. Here we are again, and I'm glad to have you with me, and I'm glad to be here with you, obviously. It's a good thing. It's always a good thing to be able to be here. And hello, Renee, already in the room. And, so she's going to the store, but she'll be listening. Wonderful. I have some news. I have been asked by YouTube to turn my shows into podcasts. So I've decided to accept them on their offer, and which was very kind of them. And so I'm going to be doing that. I'm verbose. And so they said, gee, he talks a lot. So we're going to ask him to turn his whatever these are into podcasts. So I'm going to do that. I'm not sure exactly what goes on there, but I'm going to begin doing that. So I guess all it is they take the video out and I'm not sure exactly what all is going to happen, but that will be in the future. So that will be fun. So today will be part 2 of going into the Major Arcana and talking about their religious experiences, which is quite fascinating to me. Hello, Pamela. How are you? Good to see you. Welcome to the room. What room? It's YouTube at Mo Abdelbaki. That's Abdelbaki. Abdelbaki. The name is Egyptian. I always thought it was just one of those generic names, but every time I've said it somewhere, they always go, "Are you Egyptian?" Yeah. So I have Egyptian heritage. My mom and dad. And I was not born in Egypt. I was born elsewhere, but, they came, they were born there and raised there. And my dad in Cairo, my mom in Alexandria. I once met some Egyptians in a shop called King Tut. And it was a nice little shop. And they say, I said, yeah, I'm Egyptian. They said, well, yeah, really? Oh, of course you are. I said, no, I am. I was raised in this country, and, but I was not born in this country. And, and the guy says, yeah, really? Yeah. Where are your parents from? And I said, they sound Russian, don't they? I said, so, yeah, my dad was from Cairo, my mom from Alexandria. Of course, father from Cairo, mom from Alexandria. I was like, come on, man. It was weird. It was real weird. And I'd planned on buying, they had some beautiful canopic jars, which were, of course, not real, but they were reproductions of canopic jars, the 4 jars that held the innards of humans when they were mummified, rich people, because only rich people generally could afford such things. And I said, I think I had some money back then, and maybe I'll buy those. They'd make nice. They would be in back of me somewhere. You could see them, I'm sure, if I'd bought them. But these guys were so rude, especially the one guy. The other guy was a little bit better. And he kept saying to the guy in Arabic, come on, don't be so rude to this guy. He might buy something. And I said, not in Arabic, but I said back, you're right. I'm not buying a thing now. And they both realized, well, he knows Arabic, that's for sure. And it was just weird. This was many years ago, about 30 years ago. And I didn't. I just thought, these guys are jerks. Well, one was. I don't know what his problem was with me, but he had one. No idea. I was telling the truth. Funny how people can be. So, but I've always been real proud of my heritage, especially after I went. I had no idea what it was about until I went. I was 7. And, before I went to the pyramids, I thought they were about the size of a barn, because I was a kid. And then you go see them, you're like, oh my God, that thing's gigantic. It's very big. And then I went back when I was 18. I was like, oh my God, that thing's gigantic. You see it again, and it's like, oh my God. So let's get back to it. We left off. Oh, the premise. For those of you just starting in on this, I did one last week, and it's about the fact that tarot. That it's always seemed very ironic to me that the pictures on tarot cards, especially the Pamela Coleman Smith drawings, which are known as the Rider-Waite deck, Arthur Edward Waite commissioned her to do his drawings on the Golden Dawn. The Golden Dawn was a magical order at the turn of the 19th to 20th century. And one of the things you had to do was create your own tarot deck if you wanted to, pass and get the big, ta-da, get the highest ranking. I can't remember. Isthmus. I don't remember exactly what it was all about. I've got the book right over here. I could grab it, and then I'd fall over, and we'd have a crash, and there'd be a sound like yeah. Nah, it doesn't matter. But anyway, so but people wonder what all these different drawings on a tarot deck are. And basically they are, most of them, well, they're all religious. Every single one of them in modern tarot decks, especially the Rider-Waite deck, which is very popular, and the earlier decks too, but still the Rider-Waite deck. And the reason they had to do that was because you had to get by the censor, the major censor, and the major censor was the church. L'Église, right? The church. And that was because the church didn't like to be, gambling and so on, and it was frowned upon because when you gambled, you couldn't give your tithing, and you couldn't, and it was against the rules, and so on and so forth. There. So a lot of major decks, they had, for example, there was one deck that had 80 cards, and the 80 cards all had different pictures, like the 7 liberal arts and sciences, and the 5 orders of architecture. The 5 orders of architecture. Oh my God. The Tuscan, the Doric, the Ionic, the Corinthian, and the Composite. Rubbish. Just rubbish stuck in my head. But there they are. And, the 7 liberal arts and sciences, and, things like cartography and they, it just had stuff. All sorts of stuff, So these are the things that were there, that were on the on the cards, and they were basically designed to teach classical things, if not religious things, but religion was more preferred. So it was a ruse. And remember, the cards were not used originally to do what we do with them, which is, to play games still all over the world, Taroki, and games like Scat, and games like, there's a game called Scopa, which is, I have a Scopa deck over here. I'm not going to grab it. It's a lot of fun. They're Italian decks, and they look a lot like tarot decks, but without the Major Arcana. As a matter of fact, the case is real thick, and when you pull the cards out, you go, wait a minute, something's missing from this deck. I bought it at an Italian restaurant, as a matter of fact, and I said, oh, that looks like a tarot deck, because it had swords and it had cups and it had all. And when I pulled it out, I said, well, there's like 22 cards missing from this deck, and they said, no, this is how it comes. These are Italian playing cards. And I realized that they probably sell them that way, but they also sell them with the other cards in case, who knows? But they're missing what we would call the Major Arcana, but although they may sell them when they want to play Tarok, Tarroch, Tarok. Or in the Slavic countries, Tarr or Tarok. It's all over the world this game is played. But the symbolism on them is very specific. And so we ended at the last card we ended at was the wheel. Well, that's not the wheel. It's on here somewhere, but don't worry about it. So the next card we have, I know why, because I had separated all these out. There it is. The so-called Wheel of Fortune. Can you buy a vowel? Yeah, there's an O right there at the top. O right there at the top. Or at the bottom. T-A-R-O. Orato. Orato means I speak, which I think is interesting. Arot means, I believe, to stop. That was a big, don't put too much thought into it. So the next one after that, we spoke about that last time. So if this is your first visit to this particular two-part series, go watch the first one or watch this one, then go watch the first one, or if you don't care, don't worry about it. The next one is justice. Justice, one of the four cardinal virtues: temperance, fortitude, prudence, and justice. Now, prudence is not in the Major Arcana. It is, however, the Eight of Discs. Eight of Discs. Right? Simple. Ruled by the sun in Virgo, as a matter of fact. All the minor Arcana cards, 2 through 10, are ruled by planets. So there you are. So here we are. Here is the Rider-Waite version of this card, Justice. Right? And it's a fascinating card, I think, because you have the sword pointing up, right? Now, I decided I think it might be very helpful and very interesting next week to take a look at the Major Arcana in the Aleister Crowley deck, which is very different. It's a very different deck. It's a very different energy all the way around. It's a very different, because Aleister Crowley was not beholden to anything but himself. Do what thou wilt. Right? Do what thou wilt. So his concept of this card is entirely different. Entirely different. So in all four of the cardinal virtues, temperance, fortitude, prudence, and justice. And fortitude, remember, is the strength card. And remember, we said that was Daniel in the lion's den, and how they were about to be snarfed up by lions, but there was an angel holding the lion's mouth shut. So here we have justice, holding the sword up. Now, in magical iconography, when you're holding the sword point up, that is seeking the truth. Now you know. When you hold the sword down, it's invocation. Invoking truth. Invoking something. When you hold the sword point down, it is the truth realized. Now, especially in the Crowley deck, when we talk about that, you will find that there is always truth being sought, truth realized. Keep that in mind. Took me a while to figure that out. I think the old man actually said something about that. So here we see truth being sought. And look at that in statues of justice, because you'll see it portrayed two different ways. Truth being sought and truth realized. And I think that always says something about how things are done. Okay? I think that's a really good thing to look for. I see that all the time in Themis or Metis, goddesses of justice. Does she have the truth, or is she looking for the truth? Blind justice. There's nothing blind about this, right? Seeking justice, eyes wide. Correct? Correct. Pretty easy, but it is still mentioned in the Bible. Okay? And that's why, pardon me, they got away with it. These had to be recognized. I think that's kind of an important aspect of it, is they had to be recognized. Okay? The next one, number 12. Number 12. In the Major Arcana, the Hanged Man. Le Pendu. The Hanged Man. Oh, Pamela says, I never knew that. Well, yeah. Most people don't. They didn't spend decades with their heads underneath pounds of books, squeezing any sense out of their heads. The Hanged Man. Right. Now, I'm not an aficionado of a huge fan of this deck. It's good. I mean, it's okay. It is the most popular deck in the world. And when I submitted my deck to U.S. Games, Stuart Kaplan's daughter, who is very esteemed, and so on, said, we're looking for decks like the Rider-Waite deck. And I said, oh, well, that makes sense, because that's the deck that made them, very wealthy. And that's the one that is very much accepted. No sour grapes or anything. I just printed my own. And that, I thought maybe people would like something very different. And A.G. Mueller publishes the Crowley deck. And but they want takeoffs on this sort of thing, on this model. And I understand that. People are comfortable with that. That's what people want. And I get that completely. Pardon me. So I get it. But I like sort of a different take, and I was really taken by the Crowley deck, and I did my own thing even beyond that, because I said, okay, let's do that. But this is very standard. And this follows the religious thing very closely. Now, anyone during the Inquisition would have looked at this and said, oh, I recognize this. What is this? Who is this? What is this about? Well, in the mid-12th century, this became the standard punishment for a traitor. Yes, it did. Milan, especially. Oh, thank you. You love my shirt. Thank you. I love this shirt too. It's a really nice shirt and very, very cool colors. Thank you. And so this is the Hanged Man, and notice his leg is, and I'm not going to get into the symbolism of all this because, like I said, I didn't study this deck for 45 years. I studied the deck we'll talk about next week. But understand, this is not designed to kill somebody. This was reserved for traitors. Now, when I saw this in a reliquary, I wrote the Vatican and said, who is this? Because there were four Tarot symbols in the reliquary. There was, from Tarot, there was this, there was the blasted tower, and it was all silver. It was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. There was the wheel, and what was the fourth one? There was the tower, there was the wheel, there was this, and there was something else. I'm not entirely sure. I recognized all, but I said, okay, I know who these are, but or did I know any of them? I think it got me really going on my search for, it was the Hermit. And so I started searching. Right at that point, I said, okay, I need to figure out what's what with tarot, because the reliquary really, I said, oh my God, these have to be saints. Saints. Well, I knew the Hermit. That was Saint Anthony. And so I started in on, the Tower. We'll get to her. And the wheel we talked about. I don't know if I talked about the wheel. Saint Catherine is one of them. And that's what you'll find, although it actually isn't. It's Ezekiel. Okay, it is Ezekiel. But the wheel is attributed to Saint Catherine. Saint Catherine was an Egyptian of Alexandria, actually, where my mom was from. She was an Egyptian who was tortured and then brutally murdered on the wheel, and it's a gruesome thing. I don't want to talk about it. She was martyred on the wheel, and so that's her symbol. And so they use the wheel as a symbol. So the wheel is not the wheel of fortune of the Romans. When they see that in tarot, that would be for St. Catherine. So it's kind of like, and so the Hanged Man, I started doing research. And when I did that research some 40 some years ago, I found several books on saints that mention numerous saints who had been tortured. None of them died by being hung upside down. I'm sorry, hanged. There's a big difference. Big difference. Hanged upside down and tortured by being hanged upside down, and it was a special sort of misery for them. Because I had a great memory at one time. Now I'm older, and it's like a little sieve. Things just flow away from it. And so I don't remember any of the names. And I was so cocky, I didn't write this stuff down. I know one was an Irish saint. I thought one of them was Saint Oswald of Northumbria, and he wasn't. I can't find it. But I wrote, and they didn't give me any information. They wrote this nice letter back. They said, "Oh, well, we don't know." And I thought, you guys are shining me on. But there were several books. I actually have a book on saints that I bought. I should check that. It's old. It might still have some references, but or maybe go to a library and look at some older books on Catholic saints, because the online stuff has all been kind of purged. I can't find anything anymore that used to list some of these saints that were hanged upside down by one leg. And one was a couple of saints in Ireland. One was a pal of Saint, not Saturnus. It was something like that. But I'm sorry, I didn't write it down. It's not important anyway, because they didn't die. But there were several of them that this was pretty common, was to hang them upside down by one foot and just leave them there. And this in Italy, this became in the mid 12th century, was pretty common. And it was for traitors, okay? And for those who ripped off widows and orphans. And they would take the money that they had ripped off and stuff it in their pockets. And so it would fall out on the ground, and no one would steal it because that was impure money. And so what you could do is you could slap them in the face, and you could spin on them, and you could do terrible things to them. And you would feed them. They would feed them and give them water, and they didn't usually die. They might die, who knows, maybe suffocation. But the whole time they would feed them and take care of them so that they would last a long, long time. This was, and traitors and betrayers. Now, take a look at Renaissance and other drawings of the one betrayer. Who's the original betrayer? The original betrayer. Who was that? Lucifer. Lucifer. Because God says to Lucifer, I want everyone to kneel and bow to my greatest creation, mankind. Man. Kneel. And Lucifer says, I'm not kneeling to that thing. He doesn't deserve it. I'm not doing it. And God says, you will. I told you to do it. You do it. And Lucifer says, no, I won't do it. He says, come on. I told you. He says, you know, God, I'm not doing this because he doesn't deserve kneeling. He doesn't deserve your love in this way. He said, he's not worthy of it. And I love you so much that I will spend the rest of eternity proving it to you. And that's what it's about. Read Paradise Lost. Do it out loud. That's what it's meant. It's meant to be read out loud. So that's what it's all about, that whole story. And he throws him out of paradise because he betrays God. And that's the whole thing. Lucifer is full of pride. And when you look at drawings or paintings of the fall of Lucifer, they 99% of the time they paint him with one leg bent, right? Behind his back. Just like this. That's the attitude of Lucifer being thrown and head down. So that's what it is, you see. That's what it is, and that's what this punishment is. It's an attitude of the emulation of Lucifer being thrown out of paradise. That's it. So this was immediately recognized as being pride. You know, you had to have a lot of pride to betray someone who had treated you well and so on. So this is immediately recognition of Lucifer, essentially. Yeah, that's what this is about. Pride and betrayal and traitor. So that's what this is about. That's who the hanged man is an emulation of. Yes, it's a traitor. Yes, it's a punishment, not meant to kill. But when saints were hanged upside down by a heel, that's what that was all about. Hung versus hanged. Well, Pamela, there's a big difference. There's a big difference. Yes, there's a big difference. Pictures are hung on the wall, and hanged is something quite different. And when we say, I'm not going to get into it because it's tawdry and salacious. Oh, silly. Okay, this is a very important card because people, they go, oh, so I got to tell you a story. I was trying to think of some of these saints that I had read about. Couldn't think of any. And so I was this was in the middle of the night, you know, and I was kind of drifting in and out. And then Saint Arbogast came to mind. Arbogast. And I thought, who the heck is Saint Arbogast? Just zip. And I thought, well, have I heard of him before? Have I thought of him before? This was not last night, the night before. Oh my God, Saint Arbogast, what that name? How did that come to my mind? So this was yesterday, and I got up in the morning, and I thought, okay, and I'd kind of forgotten about it. I thought, oh, wait a minute, that name came to me in the middle of the night, just like an 8-ball, coming to the surface, you know. So I said, okay, I looked him up, and I said, Saint Arbogast. Okay, no, he wasn't even martyred through misery or anything. He saved a little boy, Dagobah, was that? Yeah, there was a king named Dagobah, and it was in Germany, and he was Irish, Arbogast, and he saved this kid. Died. Foot got caught in a stirrup, and he was hanging upside down by the stirrup. So okay, that's kind of like yes, you got it, Pamela. So yes, and he's trampled he was trampled to death by the horse when his foot was caught in the stirrup. And this little boy, the son of the king, died. Horrible story. And so Arbogast, he prays to Mother Mary, the mother of Jesus, and he says, if you aren't able to do anything for a little child, then why are we here? And the boy comes back to life. That's who Arbogast was. And so the king says, what can I do? What can I repay you? He says, give me land for a cathedral. And he builds this cathedral. And at the end of his life, he says, well, where do you want to be buried? He says, I want to be buried on a hillside with criminals. He says, wow. And I'm reading this and I'm thinking, why did I get this in the middle of the night? And his day of celebration, July 21st. And what day was it? July 21st. Blew me away. Blew me away. I got his name in the middle of the night out of nowhere. Today's the 22nd. Absolutely flabbergasted me. Tell you just never know. It was absolutely amazing. You never know. The hangman. Now you know. 13. Death. Don't really have to say much about it. It's in the Bible, right? Riding a pale horse. Notice it doesn't come at the very end. So it's just, we face this card every single day, and things change, things end. It very rarely means what, people always freak out when they see this card. Just wait till you see the Crowley version. Whew. It's a good one. Don't fear this card. Okay. 14. Temperance. Temperance, fortitude, prudence, and justice. One of the 4 cardinal virtues. Temperance doesn't mean not drinking. No. It means the tempering of everything. Now, notice what this angel is doing. This is Sagittarius, by the way. The angel is mixing fluids. Now, in ancient Rome, it was considered gauche, at the very best, to drink wine straight. Just terribly uncouth. What you did is you mixed them together, right? Wine and water, because wine was potent. You just didn't drink it straight. So what you did is you mixed your wine, right, with water. And that was the only way you did it. And then the Romans added salt of lead salts to the wine to sweeten it a little bit. Thus the end of the Roman Empire. But, okay, so this is also, right, it's in the Bible. Okay, I'm just saying, this is all recognized. 14. I don't think there's much more to say about that. Temperance in everything, right? As at the oracle of Delphi. Know thyself, moderation in everything. I used to do that. Number 15. The devil. Different than Lucifer in some ways. Lucifer, his sin was pride. The devil, Satan, let's say, his sin is anger. Satan, let's say. There's also greed and gluttony, the 7 deadly sins, right? Pride, anger, lasciviousness, pride, anger, lasciviousness, avarice, greed, and sloth, right? Gluttony's in there, but sloth. Okay, yeah. So there we go. And notice the people chained. They're chained to this big cube that he's standing on, and so that's material stuff. Because the devil in this day and age is material stuff, You're supposed to live a life of piousness and poverty and misery and, disease and do that all and just grin and bear it, because in the future, you're going to go to heaven and everything will be just Jim Dandy, right? A lot like today, where we don't question what's going on in government and just say, oh, everything's going to be fine. In an oligarchy, right? Ambition is often viewed as the devil. Ambition. Okay, enough said. The Tower. A misunderstood card, if there ever was one, in a tarot deck. The Tower is the story of Saint Barbara, another Egyptian saint. It's not in the Bible. It is religious, however, and everyone would have recognized it instantly. The tower is ruled by Mars, but the story is that this young Egyptian girl, her father wanted her to marry a pagan. She had converted. Let's see. Hey, from India, this side, Agrima. Oh, hi. Nice to see you. Welcome to the room. Welcome. We've got someone visiting from India. Oh, I want to also say, those of you who are new subscribers, because I have some new subscribers, welcome. And to all of you who have been here for a long time, welcome back, or welcome as usual, or thank you. So Barbara, they did not call her Babs, I'm guessing. She refused to marry this guy because he was a pagan. Okay? And maybe she had taken a vow of something. So her father said, fine, I'm shutting you up in a tower. He had the tower built, or maybe it was already there. And so that was bad, because they had to get this thing going, because it was a merger of land and wealth and, esteem and all that sort of thing. Probably had to deal with the Saudis. I have no idea. So it was bad. And she said, I'm not marrying this guy. You can shut me up. And she had nuns who were there with her. They were Christians, and they were, So he went to her and said, look, you're either going to marry this guy or I'm going to kill you myself. And she said, Pop, do what you need to do. So he took out his sword and he cut her head off. The cloud got big over the clouds, and they got very dark. And he did it, and this is what happened. Kaboom! The tower was blasted. Now, doesn't that change how you feel about this card? I mean, Oh, I'm sorry, not. I can't. I'm not reading cards today. I'm talking about this. But thank you so much for asking. I appreciate that and your trust in me. Thank you. So the deal is that it should change to some extent how you feel about this. Most people see the tower and they go, oh, have you done something to deserve this? It's the person who has done something terrible. It's the person who has done something so miserable that they deserve this. This is cause and effect. This is cause and effect. This is Mars. Action and reaction, you see. Okay? Does that make sense? Do you get it? This card I'm never afraid of this card, unless I'm in the back of my mind going, uh-oh, what have I done? Right? What have I done? Okay? Don't fear this card. This is about what have we done to deserve this card. Now, if you've done something, right? Okay. 17. The Star. The Star. Here we are. Now, you notice the image here is of a woman with water containers. What does that remind you of? Well, Aquarius rules this card. Aquarius rules this card. Yeah. So that's that. What star are we talking about? Well, what star? What star? Is there a star? Is there a star that's... Was there a star in the Bible? Was there a star that announced something? The star. Oh, the star. The star that led the Magi, the three wise men. Well, that would be probably the same star. Now, has it ever really been kind of announced or anything? Well, here we go. The Star of Aquarius. The Star of Aquarius? What the Star of Aquarius? Well, there actually wasn't one per se, but Aquarius is in what's called the watery part of the sky. And right below Aquarius is a constellation known as the Fish. And a very bright star in the Fish is known as Fomalhaut. And Fomalhaut is one of the 4 bright stars in the sky. Okay? Very, very bright. And these 4 stars are part of what I call the 4 pillars. And I'm not the only one, but I'll pretend I am. So the 4 pillars that we were speaking of last week. Now, these 4 stars, okay, Regulus, I'll do it this way, Regulus in Leo, Antares, which means not Aries or not Mars in Scorpio, Fomalhaut in Aquarius, and Aldebaran in Taurus. Okay, now Regulus is very bright white, and it's in, as I said, in Leo, means kingmaker. And then we go to Antares, which is red, and then Fomalhaut, which is bright and is white, and then Aldebaran, which is red, which is the bullseye, and that's why the bullseye is called that, red, in dartboards. Okay, R-A-F-A, Rapha. Who is the guardian angel of Tarot? Raphael. And that means the healing of God. God is healed, Raphael. And Raphael is the guardian of Tarot. And Raphael was accompanying Tobias, remember, in the story of Tobit. See? Yes. By the way, in Punch and Judy, did I mention that? I think I did. Punch's dog is named Tobias. It's funny how these things work. So this is that star. The star. Instantly recognizable. That's the star. And hence we get into the some parts about the New Testament, don't we? We do. Here's the moon. We're getting into the moon. Here's the moon. Gee, the moon is dripping. What was it dripping? Why, that would be an eclipsing moon, wouldn't it? Now there's a wolf and a dog. And the wolf and dog they represent probably our own, you could say that represents our own inner selves, and it's the domestic and the tamed part, or the domestic and the wild part, and there's a crawfish. I'm not going to get into all that. There's a lot to that. It's alchemical and the 2 towers. But that moon dripping, right? It speaks of the eclipse. And the eclipse moon in the Bible talks about the apocalypse. So here we're coming to the apocalypse. Instantly recognizable. Yes? We're getting to it. So this, and I mean, gets to kind of a scary part. And the moon in Tarot is ruled by Pisces. Pisces rules the moon card. And in the Crowley deck, it's scarier. I don't know how you read it. There's many ways to read it. Okay? And then we have the Sun card, which is not scary. It's very different. Who's that kid? Why is there a kid on that white horse? Have you ever looked this up? Have you ever looked up, who's that kid on a white horse? And the sun is all, yay! It's shining so brightly. Well, who rides a white horse? Jesus does. That's Jesus. That's baby Jesus. Doesn't say it's a baby. Pamela Coleman Smith must have been kind of Christian. Arthur Edward Waite was very Christian. Yes, he was. A lot of people don't realize that. I wonder how many people would use this tarot if they realized how Christian Arthur Edward Waite was. I wonder. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't bother them. He actually kind of tossed a lot of things aside later on in life. None of my business. I'm not going to get into it. But that's Jesus rides a white horse. Death a pale horse, Jesus a white horse in the Bible. Okay? That's Jesus on a white horse in the Sun card. Recognizable. This needs no introduction. Judgment. This is the resurrection. This is kind of the rapture, isn't it? This is number 20. Here we are. Ah! Let's see. Val says, I'll never look at some of these cards the same way again. Exactly. That's why I ended up creating my own deck. I mean, I used the Crowley deck because it was introduced, the Crowley deck was introduced to me by a druid, and he was a pagan, to say the very least. But, and I could, and then I created my own deck because it made sense to me to do so. And this shouldn't, if you're into this deck, don't let it ruin it for you. It's just that it's a very Christian deck. I have to say it, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It had to be at the time, I'm sure. I mean, this was designed during the Victorian age. It was executed after Victoria died in 1901. I believe this was at 1912. I could be completely off on that, but I think that's about right. So this is the resurrection, and I don't think Christians should have a problem with this. And then this deck that I have is messed up because it doesn't have the world card. Let me pull out the card out of my Crowley deck here because I don't know where my other Rider-Waite deck is. So let me get my world card out of the Crowley deck. In the Rider-Waite, the world card is a woman dancing, forming an aleph, I believe, holding a big fire wand in her hand. It's a staff, and she's dancing, and she's known in the Bible as the woman of the woman of the apocalypse. And what she is Mary. Again. It's all very confusing to me. And that's the world card. Now, Crowley gives it a different take. And his card is the universe card. He doesn't have a judgment card. He has an Aeon card. And Frida Harris, I'll find it. It just takes time. You go through all the cards, it's the last card you find. Yeah. I used this particular deck, big deck, for a long time. I'll find it. We were talking about the tower. This is Crowley's tower. Yeah. Look at that. Whew. Well, look at his moon card. I mean, he just didn't care about tradition, you know? Like, I'm doing my own thing. And neither did I. You know, I just said I have an understanding of what these cards mean to me, and it's based on using this deck for 45 years and studying it, but it's also based upon my practical application. Oh, here we are. No, that's the Eon. Oh, come on. I probably went by it. Great honk. All right. I described it to you. That's good enough. The whole point is, the last card. Oh, here it is. Okay. He does show the woman. Okay. The Lady of the Apocalypse. But there's a snake, and there's a... And what he does is he shows the universe as a three-sided torus, T-O-R-U-S, which at the time was, they believed the universe to be a three-sided torus. Donut is a torus shape, but they thought it was a three-sided torus. And the four cherubs are in the corner there, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. You can see that's kind of wild. So, and that's, once again, that's a biblical thing. I just think that's kind of amazing. So yeah, that's Tarot. That's the Major Arcana. Mine looks nothing like that. I'll show you mine real quick. And you go, boy, is this guy self-absorbed. Here's my moon card. Because there's only one way to go with the moon, and that's through the channel. There is an eclipsing moon, and there's things you can see in the moon, and then there's only one way to go, and that's right down the middle. I'll explain that more someday. Let's find my universe card. I got so caught up in the idea of a three-sided torus that I tied one out of a strip of leather. There's the universe. I didn't worry about the Lady of the Apocalypse. And that's me after having tied it. And I have it. I have it in a box up here. I suppose I should wear that around my neck. Wear the universe around my neck. It's pretty cool, actually. There it is, the universe. Once you tie it, what do? You move on. So there it is. Next week, I think just for grins, let's go through the Crowley Major Arcana, and you can get a different look at the cards. Maybe I'll change my mind by then, but it just seems like it might be fun to do. Look at the difference between the Rider-Waite deck and the Aleister Crowley Thoth deck in the Major Arcana, and just how very different they are. They're very different. And these guys knew each other. It's the difference between genius and tradition. How's that? Okay? All right. Good for this week. I love you all very much. I hope you enjoyed this. I had a blast. Until next time, I wish you all peace, and I wish you all love, and have fun. Metaphysics is an absolute hoot. It's wonderful stuff. Okay? Talk to you later. Bye.
Until next we meet, I'll be waiting for you right here in the Paisley Penny Arcade.